What's up, everybody? I am Levi with the Veritas 21 podcast.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're going through a live feed right now on TikTok, so people are joining in. We're going to ask them to pose us some questions, and then we're going to sit here and conversate a little bit about them and provide our perspective. To start, let's talk about manhood, okay? What is boyhood to you?
Boyhood, it's like growing up and you need people around you, like let's say parents or even like a father figure. Especially as a boy, you need a father figure in your life. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, you need a very good example of what it's like to be a man.
Because at that stage you're a boy, and you're trying to grow into being a man. So you want all those positive role models around you like that.
And what are some things that you think that we should look for in trying to find a positive role model?
Somebody that definitely abides by the law. You don't want to go down the wrong road.
Absolutely.
Somebody that has a good job, somebody that you can really look up to.
Right. And I think also what's very important is somebody that displays a high level of patience, that is a good teacher.
Good integrity. That
lives a life of integrity and character, and shows a boy how to work through the minute emotions in life. And I'm saying minute for a specific reason, because it's those small things that often lead up to the bigger things in life. Mm-hmm. And so in boyhood, it's extremely important to have that positive role model in that sense that's showing you how to be a man along those lines. So, and the reason why this is so important is that 71% of high school dropouts were raised in a fatherless home. 46% of those in poverty are from a fatherless home. 60% of youth that ends up committing suicide is from a fatherless home. I mean, we often talk about toxic masculinity, and really masculinity along these lines is what's so important, is that you're there, you're displaying those things. And then let's talk about the adolescence level. So in adolescence, that's when you're finally starting to become a man. This is when you're a young man. We were just reading a article that said that you need to have 2 or 3 positive role models in your life teaching you how to become that. Mm-hmm. Because in adolescence, that's when you start coming in. Yeah, deadbeat dads. That's a perfect way to say it. Deadbeat dads. I can't stand deadbeat dads. My dad, honestly, was a deadbeat dad. So
yeah, I was gonna honestly ask you. Speaking about growing up in fatherless homes, how do you think you made it out with?
Honestly, I think for me, I made it out of a fatherless home very well, but my mom possessed a lot of the male characteristics, and I was raised in church, so it taught me how to put reliance elsewhere and finding where I can find that person that's going to teach me things.
So your mom kind of stepped in, was the mom and the dad, huh?
Absolutely. So yeah, just like in boyhood, that's the other thing, right? In boyhood is I want somebody that's going to teach me how to build a bookshelf. Teach me how to change the oil in the car, change the tire when it blows out on the side of the highway, because you never want to get caught up in a marriage later in life where you as a man don't have the ability to do that. It's extremely, extremely important that a man can do those things so that he can teach his son how to do those things as well.
And best friend just commented and said, you can learn from a bad example just as much as from a good one. And honestly, I agree with that, but that's kind of learning the hard way, which sometimes people do. I know whenever I'm going through something, I always have to find out the hard way. I'll never take the easy way. And it's not by choice. It just happens.
Absolutely. And I think also with boyhood comes this rite of passage, right? So learning how to get past those bad things, because in life, no matter where you go in employment, the rite of passage is you becoming, say in my position in law enforcement, is becoming a sergeant, becoming a lieutenant, rising through the ranks of that specific organization that I work for. And that rite of passage is earned. And it's extremely important as a man that you learn that rite of passage, how to obtain that, how to evolve and overcome. And so going back to a bad example, my dad was a bad example of this. He never taught me what that rite of passage was to become a man. And so the worst part about that is, like we talked about, adolescence. In my adolescence, I didn't know what it would take to move up the chain. And so I've had to learn day by day, and I often use the term defining my own manhood. And I struggle with that. I struggle with, how do I look at my own emotions? How do I evolve and overcome these things that we're talking about? What made me join the police force? Sarah, what made me join the police force is that I wanted to be involved in the community. But also, I recognized that where I was at in life, I spent 6 years in manufacturing before I got into law enforcement. And I felt like I wasn't living to my full potential. I felt like I wasn't living a purpose. Now, that has nothing to do with anybody blue collar working in a factory. It was just where I was at in my own personal life.
So Tiff asks, what is one thing people misunderstand about you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm a very, very confident person, but my greatest battle is not being arrogant, not allowing ego to take over my life. And so oftentimes people will look at me like, oh, he's just an egotistical, dickhead per se, right? Mm-hmm. And really I'm not. I want what's best for other people. And because I didn't have that role model when I was growing up, I want to be a role model to other men and potentially women around me that, hey, there are still good, authentic, real men out there that want the best in other people around them. But I recognize that it takes this level of confidence. What about you?
One thing I'm very misunderstood about is I come off as an asshole to people. Like, I joke around way too much. Yeah. Like, I have a difficult time being serious. So I just like joking around. Everything to me is like a joke, and that shouldn't be my mindset, but like in my head, that's what it is. So I'm actually like a genuine guy, and I'm nice, but everything that I say normally comes out wrong and makes me sound like an asshole.
Yeah. Well, and me too, because we have a dark sense of humor. And, sometimes when we go live on TikTok like we are right now, that really comes out. But there also needs to be like when is the right time? When is the right time? Because that's the other thing about manhood, is knowing the right time. I always talk about tactful communication. And I'm not the best.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting here saying that I am the best here. Oftentimes, I'm not as tactful as I would like to be.
All right. So Becca asks, how long is too long to wait for a proposal or marriage?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think you got to do it when the time is right. Honestly, you just got to do it when the time is right.
What happens if you think the time that is right is in a week? Because there's a lot of people that I'm sure have proposed within a week. Just
good point.
I need to lock down this relationship.
Okay, so the 10 standards, when you have those written down, in the matter of time that you guys have been together, if that person does not match those standards, then I'd say don't get married to them. But say if you figure that out through their own personal life experiences, and it's only been 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, whatever that time period is for you to figure out that they have the standards that you anticipate to get out of the relationship, then that's the time for marriage, in my opinion. Right? But I think that you have to know what that is and what you want out of that. Okay, so let's talk about like manhood. Like now you and I are at the stage of being men. Mm-hmm. What do you determine in yourself that makes you a man?
Having a reliable job.
So we talked about those things a little bit, but I think there's two things. A man has to provide and provide security, right? Because ultimately it's in our nature, and a lot of people may disagree with me on this, but it's important that men provide that security emotionally to their significant other, that they aren't going to leave when times get hard.
And nowadays that's difficult to do.
Like a good man is resilient. He fights every day. He's competitive with those emotions inside of himself. He's self-aware. A man steps up to the plate when there are financial issues. He's like, well, what can I do? And there's nothing wrong with me saying this. There's nothing wrong with a woman going to work, but if she wants to stay at home and raise the children, I believe it's the man's role to say, you know what, that's okay. That's okay if you want to stay home and raise the children. How can I provide for my family in a better sense? You know, that again, it comes back to that self-awareness.
And it kind of goes back to what best friend commented. She said, manhood prepares a man for marriage.
Right.
And through everything that you go through and everything like that. And especially, and I know this isn't what we're talking about, but going through breakups as a man, it plays a huge toll on your life. Like it can completely wreck you. And if you learn from that situation with how bad like it hurt and everything like that, you can definitely grow as a man.
Right. Okay, here we go. Sarah asked, do you believe people getting married after, say, only 7 months of dating, will it last? Again, I think it goes back to that list of standards that you have. As long as they have met those standards, then yeah, I think that it can last. But if our view of marriage is like, I'm okay with getting out of it when times get tough, then it's not going to last. Because really what it comes down to is what your perspective of marriage is. My personal perspective of marriage is that I'm giving up myself for this other person. Love is not selfish. There is nothing in love that should be selfish. Love is not about me. Love is to be sacrificial. And this is referred to in Christianity as agape love. We need to love people. We need to love our significant other without any selfish intentions there, right? All right. Would you rather have an arranged marriage or be alone forever?
I'd rather be alone forever.
Yeah, we honestly had this question earlier in the live. I would definitely rather be alone forever, because I want my marriage to be 100% natural. That's for sure, right?
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like arranged. Yeah. And what's sad, a lot of the Middle Eastern culture, that is the case, is that they are arranged.
And so their fathers pick them out.
But then again, here we are in this culture, and I would almost go as far as to say that it's hard to even find anybody. So maybe if it was arranged, maybe I'd have somebody.
If it was arranged, my parents would walk up to him and go like, hey, you're going to marry my son. I'd still get denied.
Yeah. And Tiff, good point. It would depend on who is arranging that. Let's see. So let's talk about pressures of a man. Why do men commit 3 times more the suicide than women?
That is honestly a good question. I've never thought of that, like, ever.
And I think this goes back to that topic of toxic masculinity.
I feel like, don't take this in the wrong way, but guys are more like, what is the word that I'm looking for?
Okay, so I think the reason why those numbers are so high is because we feel that responsibility. Like I made a TikTok today. I was talking about a man needs to be respected because our emotions are like, I have to do this. I have to provide. I have to work hard. I have to be emotionally stable. I have to be able to change that tire. I have to do all of these things because the weight bared on a man's shoulders is often, I think, in my opinion, in my personal experience, is that a man bears that way more than a woman. And it's in ourselves. It's not about, it's not about, feminism or men should run the world or anything like that, but we bear that on ourselves because it's natural in us to feel that pressure bearing down on our shoulders to be better men.
I would agree with that.
Okay,
100%.
if a man doesn't feel they've reached those expectations, then they are devastated. Absolutely. And that goes back to, there was another comment in there about emotions. The emotions of that, so difficult.
It's like all the pressure falling down on you at once.
Yeah.
I get that.
And what's sad for me personally is that I want that so bad, right? Like, but there's also this other side of me that I'm like, you know what? I can wait. I can wait to have a woman to have kids with, to teach them how to be a man or what to expect in a man. Look, my sisters, and I see this in my sisters, nothing against my sisters here, but I oftentimes see in my sisters the pain that's been caused because of my dad's actions of how does a woman define a man? And really, a woman will define a man based on her father. And so if the father is domestically beating his wife or her mom per se, then that's going to show to her that maybe in some ways that that's acceptable. Whereas if a man is well-tempered, he handles his emotions without taking it out on somebody physically, then it's showing to those people in his life, the children, that this is what I expect in a man. This is not okay. Now, I'm not generalizing that anybody that has been in a domestic relationship, domestic abuse relationship, that they experience that. I'm just saying that that can lead to that. And exactly what you're saying, Becca, generational cycles is the perfect way to do it because it just reciprocates. It's like throwing a basketball down a hill and it just continues to go. And really, the better way to put that, it's like a snowball that you throw down the hill and it builds and gets bigger. Oftentimes, if you look at all of the serial killers out there, they were raised in terrible homes. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched the movie The Shack. In the movie The Shack, it really showed that level of mercy and grace on somebody else because of their backgrounds. Now, does it justify actions? Absolutely not. I've said it time and time and time again that a man has to be accountable to his decision making, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. So, best friend said a man needs a woman he could be vulnerable around without any judgment. And this is my thing. Whenever I get into a relationship, that kind of put it in perspective for me. So whenever I'm in a relationship, whenever it's just her and I, like we're hanging out, we're doing whatever, I am way different than I am around like my guy friends with them. So that's me opening myself up to them, which is hard for me to even do. And then whenever we break up or something happens, it gets really tough because then you're like, I basically like showed you my true self and like it wasn't enough. And maybe that's guy headspace.
Which is going to hurt you even more.
Yeah.
Because men, naturally, we have a tendency not to want to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So when I put my heart out on the line and a knife goes through that.
Yeah, exactly. Dude.
Oh my gosh. It hurts me so dang bad. And I think, and that's with anybody. When a woman puts faith in a man that he's not going to cheat, and then he goes out and he does it, then that's like putting that knife through her heart because she is opening up to him. She's making herself vulnerable. She's putting herself on the line. And then if we're talking about dating, I think that a lot of times this is the reason why dating is so dang difficult in today's world, because there's so much baggage, so many things that are built up, and it just makes it difficult for people to allow themselves to be vulnerable in relationships.
And it makes you not want to open back up to people. At least that's what I think. Because to me, like after every relationship that I've ever been in, it has all ended pretty badly. And like, I keep on opening myself up just to get let down. And like, I'm so tired of that, like physically drained. So like now I'm starting, this is where it kind of wraps back around. I'm not saying I'm suicidal or anything like that, but like where guys would probably think that.
Right. Exactly.
Because you want to be enough. And like whenever, I mean, you are enough. I'm not saying that you're not enough, but you want to be enough for the person that you love. And then whenever they leave, it just like your whole life just crumbles.
Right. Okay, Tiff, good point here. And I want to expand on this a little bit more. It's the same way if a man shuts a woman down for her emotions. It's painful. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's painful when a man shuts down. But why? The question is, why does a man shut down? That's the question in that. Ryan, have you ever shut down your emotions to a woman, and why?
I have, just because I'm scared of letting people in to get hurt again. I like I said, I am so tired of getting hurt. Like they always say, they're gonna stay, they're gonna stay, they're gonna stay, and then next thing you know, they find somebody better.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And for me, I was at a point in a relationship where I was disrespected, or I felt disrespected. Like I felt as a man that I wasn't encouraged, and I wasn't supported completely. So with that lack of respect came like caused me to shut down. And I think a lot of times that's unintentional, right? Like she didn't intentionally make me feel disrespected in this particular situation, but I felt that way. And so now I look back on that and I'm like, oh shoot, like I need to be aware of my emotions at that time to know how I need to deal with those emotions so that I don't shut down, so that she doesn't feel the pain of me maybe being insecure. And I think that like this is where the love language of words of affirmation comes in, correct? Mm-hmm. Like I know that I need to be affirmed. I know that I need somebody that holds me accountable because I really don't have anybody else that does that.
Yeah, I need somebody to keep me accountable and reassure me like they haven't lost feelings yet. And the thing is, you could be in the relationship, they could tell you what you want to hear, and then they leave anyways.
Exactly. Good point, Becca. Women often shut off intimacy when they feel disrespected. I 100% agree. And again, that comes back to the responsibility of the man to communicate better so that intimacy occurs. When he feels like he is not measuring up, like he needs to do better, he needs to be more responsible, he needs to be more tactful, more resilient, and show up.
And be the leader.
And be the leader. Then at that moment, then he communicates better so that intimacy reciprocates. I think because oftentimes we shut down all of those emotions and we don't talk about those things because men have a tendency to like bottle that up inside instead of communicating those things so that through that relationship, those things can be worked on so that communication, intimacy comes out of that.
And you know why that is? It is so hard to be a guy and like fully like tell people what you're going through, especially guy friends, because you get so judged.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. It's very hard to open up to people nowadays without feeling judged.
Right. If the woman does not feel loved, then they don't respect the man. Absolutely. And that's the reason why it takes both of you to find that
communication
balance.
Is key.
Communication is key. Absolutely.
There's no communication, there's no real relationship left.
Yeah, and I want to hit on this, Molly. Good point here, because men often feel that they can't be vulnerable with their significant other. And me personally, when I go into dating, like I'm 100% authentic. Like I am vulnerable. I put myself out on the line. Do I put my heart out on the line? Not necessarily, but I'm straightforward about the way I feel, my perception of things.
That's
because
my thing.
I want her to know. I want her to know. So in a way, I'm making myself vulnerable, opening myself up to judgment, and then bam, I get shut down. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want my vulnerability in that sense?
So I struggle with letting people in. So like we had to be talking for a while before like we even get to the dating stage. And whenever I do finally get to the dating stage, that's whenever I'm like 100% real and like I'm okay with opening up to them and everything like that.
Right.
And then it just like whenever they leave, it makes it so much harder that like you showed them your true colors. Like nobody else sees that from you. Like in every relationship that I've been in, they've told me that I'm a lot different around them. And I said this a little bit ago. than I am around my friends, because I don't want to show like, oh, I'm this lovable guy, like, oh, I love this girl so much around my friends, because the friends are just going to poke fun.
Yeah, but I think that takes an inner level of confidence that you're like, you know what, I'm okay. If they're going to judge me because I am in love with this woman, or I have very intense feelings for her, and they judge you for that, I don't think they're necessarily friends. You know, I think I've even experienced this in relationships, especially in my earlier 30s, 20.
You're not even 30.
Yeah, in my earlier 20s, I experienced like these friends that are like, why don't you want to hang out with me? Why don't you want to hang out with me? Well, it's because I was with my woman. And ultimately, like, I'm not getting married to you, bro. I'm getting married to her. I got to love her. I got to set you aside so that I can grow on my relationship. And you're about to call me out here.
Yeah, I am going to call you out here. My last relationship, I was not, I was able to come over here, but I decided to choose her kind of over Levi, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm going to be going to bed next to her, not Levi. So I was just like, yeah, man, I can't today. And then he would get kind of upset and a little bit sassy, you know?
Yeah, but also, but you know now that's because of where I was at that time emotionally. Like I needed a friend at that time, and you're here in this happy relationship, and I understand, but I understand too that you needed to be there for her because of what I'm talking about. But I was selfish in that moment to say, hey, dude, come over. Come on, man. I need somebody to hang out with because I'm down and lonely. I don't have a girlfriend, you know?
And all I did was tell you to get online.
Exactly. Like, that's what's so important about a man having a friend. Because through that friend, then he's able to
like open up and tell them problems.
Exactly.
It's kind of like your own personal therapist.
Exactly. And I think, I mean, you and I, Ryan and I have been great friends for like, what, 6, 7, 8 years now or something like that. But I would say in the last year, our friendship has grown far more than it did in the previous 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever.
Oh, yeah, we even coached a baseball team together.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a lot of that is because you and I have gone through a lot of things within the last year where we actually kind of had to rely on each other.
Yeah, and we normally, and it's so weird that anytime that we normally do go through like hard times or something, it's like I'm going through the hard time, and then short after he will, or he'll go through that hard time, or short after I will.
Right.
So it's all around like the same time.
Hope is acknowledging a possibility. Expectations is assuming it will happen. Leads to a letdown. You're right. Okay. I do have an expectation that I will be married. Like I have this embedded in me because I want that really bad. Now, because I'm so hopeful, and am I just walking into a relationship? Absolutely not.
You don't want to rush things.
Because my expectation is to have the woman that I know I can raise kids with and have the best possible outcome. Mm-hmm. It's not anything out of
and somebody you can build with
losing hope. It's about having that expectation of this is what I expect in a partner in order to have the best possible outcome in the relationship for the future generations of my bloodline. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. But are you expecting that a woman to check all the boxes of what my expectations are in a relationship? Absolutely. I'm not talking about physicality, but I'm talking about emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Yeah, she needs to match all those boxes. Absolutely. Because those boxes are how she's going to raise her children, our children. That's extremely important. So yeah, there's boxes. Like I said, my 10 standards, which I'm not going to share them on the podcast, but absolutely, she has to match those. But what about her baggage? It's one thing to have baggage. It's another thing to have undealt with baggage. right? Like if she hasn't resolved the baggage that she has and she wants to carry it over into the relationship that we're currently in, then that's only going to cause further issues within our relationship. She absolutely needs to have worked on those things. It's not my job to fix those issues. Now, there are some things within her life, within her life that she's naturally not going to be able to have fixed. But if it's from, say, somebody that cheated in a previous relationship, yeah, she needs to have dealt with that to where she trusts me, because I'm different than him. I'm my own man. I'm not him. So the comparing is unfair to me.
All right. And I'm guessing it's Mackenzie or McKenna, says, I think it's important to be firm in those boxes and not loosen them at all. And it's your future too, which I 100% agree
yeah,
with.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's my future happiness of how I feel that I am being a successful man. Now, I'm not talking success in what my bank account shows. Look, I could live in a cardboard box. That doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful. If I live in a cardboard box and I know that I am a very tentative husband, very tentative father, and I'm teaching my kids how to do day-to-day life and what to expect in a man, then I feel like I am succeeding.
All right. Speaking what you just said about living in a cardboard box is I went to a mission trip in Denver, Colorado one time. And I don't know if I've told you this story. But so we were on a mission trip. We were walking around the town of Denver just to share the word of God and everything like that. And we got up to this bridge, and it was by the Colorado Rockies Stadium. And there was this dude sitting there, and he had his cardboard box around him, everything like that. And he was homeless, but he was dressed really nice. And we went up to talk to him. And this is the craziest thing that I've ever experienced. Like, I never thought I'd be like walking up to random people and like just talking to them and everything. And this dude looked up at us, and he had his wallet next to him. He had a laptop next to him. He had everything. And so we got to talking to him, and he was just like, the only reason he's homeless is because like he's against the government, and he doesn't want to pay all the taxes. He doesn't want to have to pay anything, so he lives there. But he still provides for his wife. Well, his wife just left him, but like his kids, he had like 3 or 4 kids. I forgot how many he said. And it was probably one of the craziest stories I've ever seen. Like, he had business cards. He pulled out his wallet and showed us that he had money, so we didn't need to feel bad for him. It was probably the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
So he was choosing to be homeless.
Yes, because he was against paying the government.
So he would be considered a minimalist. And there's nothing wrong with being a minimalist. And so that's what I'm saying. So the house, the car, the job doesn't define my level of success. It's how I raise the family. Deeply. Because I know what it's like to do it alone. I know what it's like to come home from a stressful day at work and have nobody to talk to. And how do you deal with those emotions? Do you hop on TikTok live and just have a good time and just have a little bit of release? Yeah, sure. Do you come home every day, crack open a new bottle of vodka and go till that son of a bitch is dry? No, because that's what my dad would do. So going back to what bad experiences are, those bad experiences did teach me this is not the way I want to be. But yeah, sure, going live on TikTok, impacting people, making a podcast that develops people and gives inspiration just to give me release, because then it also inspires me to get some feedback on it. Absolutely. Like, those things are healthy, but it takes that level of confidence and authenticity to get to that point that you're willing to do that. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about all of this. Let's get back on topic, okay? What are deal breakers? Just real quick, if she does not love Jesus Christ to the same degree that I love Jesus Christ, then that's a deal breaker for me.
That, and something I learned in previous relationships, is the political beliefs have to line up. And to me, I thought that I could work through that.
Now,
it didn't work.
Now to clarify, and I've been there too, but not necessarily on everything.
Not on everything, but I mean, like, whenever it constantly causes fights and arguments about every little thing that you disagree with, it's not set up for a healthy relationship at all.
Here's one. Abortion.
Oh, yeah. So I've never been with a girl that's for abortion. Have you?
Yes. And so, like, abortion is like Oh, that's a no for me, because I believe if we made that decision that we're going to have a kid together, who's to say that you have more of a right than me to kill that baby when I have such a desire to be a father? Now, again, this does not make it justified, in my opinion. This does not make it justified if the man doesn't want to be a father. I'm just saying, like, this is something that is extremely important to me. Okay, so now let's go on to best friend's comment there. One thing about my dad, and I didn't realize this until I got older and I actually developed into a man. And looking back on things was when I realized that, yeah, I don't want to be like him. Because after my 16th birthday, my grandpa passed away, which he was like my father figure. He taught me how to do woodwork, and he taught me how to play golf. He took me out. He taught me how to fish. He had a successful marriage for 68 years with my grandmother. So I saw what a successful man was in raising two kids. Now, my dad was not successful in that sense. So being able to compare between my dad and my grandpa, I saw a difference. And I didn't recognize until I was an adult what that difference exactly was. I remember being 8 years old and we'd be on the way to a baseball game and I'd look over at my mom and I would say, "Hey mom, why aren't you and dad together? Why aren't you and dad together?" And then she would tell me, you just don't understand yet. You don't understand. But now I understand. The late night phone calls, hearing the stories about him beating women, him not being a successful man. Hearing those stories, I'm like, wow, like that, nothing against my dad. I still love my dad deeply for who he was. At 18 years old, if you don't know this, he died. He passed away. And, but also realizing he's 56 years old, living in a shotgun house, which is 3 rooms, just boom, boom, boom. Basically, it's called a shotgun house because if you shot a shotgun through it, it'd go through every single room in the house. Okay, so it's called a shotgun house. And here he is, 56 years old, living on disabilities because of his own decisions that caused him to be in that position. And every morning when I wake up and I look in the mirror, I tell myself, I never want to be like that guy. I never want to be that guy. And so there's like this fire underneath my ass to say, I'm never going to be that way. I'm going to be tactful with communication. I'm going to listen to my wife. I'm going to be trustworthy. I'm going to live my life with integrity. I'm going to live my life with character. And I'm going to establish myself not based on what worldly expectations there are, but what I wish that I would have had in that man. Was that a lot? That was a lot.
But dude, that's awesome. And the way that you've grown as a man and everything like that, dude, I'm proud of you from what you came from.
Absolutely.
Knowing that whole story.
Thank you for that. That was a good question. Wow. And I'm very, very, if you can't tell, very passionate about that. That's exactly how I feel about my mom. Exactly. Like, and this goes back to that comment, like a bad example. Yeah. A bad example provides sometimes a good perspective, but it also goes with my mom helped me and assisted me through getting through those things, right? Tell me about your manhood that you are most proud of. Oh, my development, knowing where I came from. I think, so for me is definitely overcoming. Knowing that I have nieces and nephews that I can call anytime and be tactful with my communication, be straightforward with them and say, hey, look, as long as it is not endangering your life, you can tell me anything, no judgment. And I'll be here to listen to you. I'll be here to talk with you. If you want to go grab dinner, if you want to shoot me a simple text in the middle of the night, I'll be there because I never had anybody that was there like that I felt comfortable having that conversation.
And you know how it feels not to have somebody there. So
exactly. So that the development in that sense of my communication to be able to be there is probably the thing I am most proud of. Take the house out of the question. That was financial, take Take running a business out of the question. Take the drive of sitting here and making a TikTok video that's 12 seconds long, and it takes me 2 hours to develop Ryan's freaking video that we posted on his TikTok
He's
account.
not exaggerating either. That
I'm
took
not.
forever.
I'm not. And I probably listened to it 100 freaking times because the chase to learn is what I enjoy. Not the final product. I like the work in between. And then once it's accomplished, what's next? What's next?
Yeah, because he was editing that video the other day, and I looked over at him and I said, "Do you ever get tired of just hearing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again?" Oh, it was driving me off the wall.
But my answer to that was, well, I know what is going to come out of it. It was a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to make sure that for people that listen to it, they get the message.
So, Levi, how did we become friends?
We wanted to fight each other.
Mm-hmm. I showed up at his doorstep one day back in high school, and I wanted to fight him. There's some reason I did not like Levi whatsoever. He's my brother's best friend, and I didn't like him, and I was that person that I just showed up at his doorstep wanting to fight him.
And what's funny about that is you are not the first one that I'm good friends with that the relationship was foundational off of that. And I was actually listening to a podcast the other day. My favorite podcast is Order a Man by Ryan Mickler, and he brought on Kip Sorensen. And they do like a Wednesday thing, like what we're doing right now, where they're answering questions as they come in, but they're specifically focused on manhood. So, I mean, that helps me with some of these answers that I'm talking about and my resilience and blah, 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 you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they were talking about how men oftentimes become friends after a fight, whereas women, they despise each other. Like, I'll never be friends with her. Screw her. Fuck her. Da 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 da.
Now we'll get this out of the way. We did not end up fighting.
I
We
wish
actually
I fought
ended
you,
up
though.
talking about football cards, and that's kind of where we became friends, is over football cards, because we both collected at the time.
Absolutely.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
He should be happy we didn't fight. You see these things?
Get out of here, dude. I ain't worried about you at all. You're the last one I'm worried about. Alrighty, guys, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Veritas 21 podcast. Again, we are live on TikTok. We've been getting a live feed with questions, posing some thoughts and ideas of ways that we can share our perspectives. We've had a fantastic time. Is there anything else you would like to add, Ryan?
Nope. As always.
If you guys do not, go follow us on Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on TikTok. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever. And as I always say, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, as that increases the analytics and exposes the Veritas 21 podcast to more listeners. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys have a great rest of your week, and God bless. May grace be with you.